Right. Okay. So the software is still under development as I would like to put more and more things. So I would welcome your feedback into what else to put in. Okay, so the purpose of developing this software, which is particularly just for what we consider to be an assessment for compatibility. So one of the very popular or common question, especially definitely for young people, will be on their assessment of compatibility. So whether a person is compatible with another. So to do so, we shall run through the software, which of course, once it is given to you, you would then have to key in the date of birth as usual, and of course also determine the time of birth if necessary. That will always be better. And once we do that, then we're able to plot the chart. To plot the chart. Come, so let us just familiarize ourselves with this particular chart before we learn how to decipher it. So first, in a typical color, the left chart would be the male chart, and then of course the right would be the female, and the color that is quite stereotypical, the blue and the pink, to look into the male and female. So here on the first top table, we have the parts for the male and the female. And of course, for the male, we have the hour of birth as well. So we have all the four pillars. And likewise, and unfortunately for the female, the hour is missing. Okay, then the second table represents the 10 elements or the 10 gods that feature it very well. And then below that will then be the picking up of the key ingredients, which will be your peach blossoms, your useful gods, and your void gods. And of course, we have discussed that in the previous sharing. And then comes the luck pillars. The luck pillars will be arranged in two rows, 10 years for each of these columns. So each year represents the starting year. And then, of course, we then see where the pillars lie for the time being. Okay, so here, let us come to this particular case. The case would be where uh, somebody approach you and then, of course, produces the two date of birth. And now the question is compatibility, whether the two persons are comparable or otherwise. So to look into the compatibility index, which is also can be found on page 17 of the material that has been given to you, it has somewhat something along the line of what we call a scoring system. So this scoring system can try to provide certain grading into whether the couple might find themselves favorable or otherwise. So let's start off with the first question that can be asked here, which is of course number one, your couple star position. So this couple star position is, as usual, to look into the first most important element, the most important element in the chart, which is the day master. So let's say, for example, what is the day master for the male here? What is the day master for the male? And we'll find that the day master for the male will be your run water. So it's a run water day master. And what would then be the day master for the female? Day master for the female will be pink fighter. So as we look into these two day master, the question number one, so the question number one would be on the couple star position. Not yet, we haven't come to that. We just want to come into the day master. So this is where on page 19, where we will put the male here, where we put the male here on the left and then the female onto the bar. And so in our chart, we have the run water male and the pink fire female. And therefore, the reading. The reading would be wet. So number one, for the rainwater, of course, for the male, what does pink fire represent? And rainwater people, of course, well, in the first part, there's a clash, isn't it? First part, water and fire clashes. And not just water and fire clashes, the pink fire represents the indirect wealth. Therefore, to it. So we do find that in terms of day master compatibility, the day masters may find itself that the male rainwater is attracted because here rainwater welcomes fire, welcomes the pink fire. It combines with the pink fire, but therefore this will be the indirect wealth. It's the indirect wealth star. And moreover, having a comparability, the pink fire is also here, which of course will find that this chart has the pink fire. So having the pink fire also represents that there is affinity in the chart for the element. There's affinity in the chart for the element. And of course, the question is, does the female has rainwater chart? Does the female has rainwater? The female has rainwater in this affinity as well for both the rainwater that comes in here. So this would indicate that there is strong compatibility. There's strong compatibility because the male has elements which there's affinity with, and likewise there's also an affinity for the female the same. All right, so now let's come into so this is the first part where we look into comparing both the day master, comparing both the day master. In comparing both the day master, which is on this particular chart, we might find ourselves asking the question where, of course, if the elements clash with each other. If it's a clashing with each other, it may tend to be negative. Tend to be negative. Now, some elements, of course, they might blend in very well. Like for example, if you're referring to the same element. Now, rainwater and rainwater. Water are flexible, and water mixes with water very well. And therefore, rainwater with rainwater can be amicable. They can be amicable. Which elements cannot be amicable? The elements that cannot be amicable will then be, of course, having two keng metals together. If you are a keng metal and the lady is also a keng metal, then this will be where keng and keng tends to clash. They tend to quarrel. They tend to fight. They tend to fight a lot, so to speak. And so sometimes, especially keng metal, some of them are Fui Kong stars. And Fui Kong stars, they like challenges. And therefore, if they meet another keng which tends to challenge them, they might like it. Therefore, we do find couples like that. Couples who challenges each other, who then enjoy argument in a way, because they consider this to be intellectually stimulating, and they may welcome that. So this will be the case of a relationship where sometimes they find that they they can still get along because they enjoy the clashing. But in a way, the relationship is one of arguments, one that they tend to argue with one another. Right. So here we look into the day master meeting another day master. And now let's come into the question number one now. In question number one, we now come to what we call the couple star position. So in the couple star position, the question is whether the man has direct wealth in the day branch. Sometimes we would allow we would allow indirect wealth as well. And therefore, we now look into the chart and consider that for the male, is there direct wealth in the spouse pillar? So the answer for the male is it's a yes. Answer for the male is a yes. And how about the female? For the female, we would want direct officer or the spousal, which is the seven killing. Therefore, for the pink fire, we do find that there is a seven. So yeah, sorry. I think there's a little bit of hold on. It's a seven killing. It comes in the form of the water, isn't it? Okay. I think I need to sort this out a bit. That's where the chart comes in, where we do find that there is a seven killing. So what do you consider? The answer would be kind of a yes, isn't it? All right. Okay, I think I need to work on it. So in a way, the answer is a yes. Therefore, we can then say that then there's a star position. So that's where we explore. So step number one, we compare the 2 day masters. Step number two, we look into the couple star position and consider whether the man has direct wealth and the female has the indirect wealth in their day branch, in their day branch. So the day branch, then the answer is yes. So in that case, they will score 100 points for that. And so that will be to handle the most important element on the natal chart. Now, what is the second? What is the second most important element? What is the second most important element on a chart? Will then now have to be the useful god. Now, we might find that in literature, we break it into useful gods, we break it into void gods, and there is also two more terms, which is negative god and also idol. Basically just means neutral. And so when we look into the 10 elements, in basic pacha, the basic one, we just look into the day master whether the person is strong or weak. So in very basic level one, we say that if it is strong, a strong day master, then what is favorable? What would be favorable would then be elements that is officer, elements which is of course output, and elements which is well. Therefore, these three represents positive, positive. And of course, if it is a weekday master, then what is favorable would then be yourself, which is of course your friend star and your rock wealth, and also of course of your resource, which is your direct resource and your indirect resource. Therefore, this is basic. This is basic. So in very fundamental, we look at the strength of the day master, and then we see that the elements are favorable or unfavorable. Now, elements that are favorable amongst each can then be classified as useful god. And again, what we have covered, if any of them becomes void, then it becomes a void god. If any of them become void, then it flips over and it becomes void. So a void god is a missing element, which is supposed to be useful. It's a missing. Now, besides these two, we can then find that for a weekday master, if this is favorable, then the unfavorable part will then be the other three, which is the officer, which is the output, and then which is the wealth. And amongst these three, some of them can be negative. They can be negative. And some of them can be idle. So idle means neutral. Therefore, at the end of the day, all the 10 elements, we will need to grade them as into whether they are favorable, useful, whether they are void, whether they are negative, or whether they are idle. Therefore, that's where we would like them to grade them, to grade them in that manner. Okay, so of course we do have that. Therefore, when we move on into from basic, when we move on to intermediate, so when we move on to intermediate, then we would see that there is a schedule. So we can refer to the schedule that for this person, we have a rainwater person born in October, Therefore, the useful got as in the schedule would be this Jia and Ping. And it so happens that the Ping is here and the Jia can also be found to be here. And so between these two, which is useful, one may want to consider which both can be useful. And so these are the useful gods. And thankfully, there is no void. Therefore, nothing void. Nothing. Okay. So this day master is born in October, in autumn, in the month of the dog, in the season of autumn. Therefore, metal is strong. Metal is strong. And metal is strong. We also find that the that metal will be found in both the month and also on it. Now, we would be inclined to consider that what is the structure for this day master. Now, this is a graveyard. The dog is a graveyard star. If it's a graveyard star, the structure would, instead of being the first G, very good, Malika, because sin metal is protruded. Therefore, the structure goes into direct resource. So we will consider this to be a direct resource structure, a direct resource structure. That is right. So therefore, this will be a direct resource structure because sin metal comes in. So the resource will be useful. So the resource structure is useful. So in that case, resource is not negative. It is not idle. It's not idle. So what may be idle? So what may be idle would then be well, anyway, all these are sometimes opinions. You can find that you and I, we can disagree. We can have our viewpoint. But for rainwater, normally, rainwater, they don't really need output. They don't need, uh, of course, output will be useful to produce wealth for them. And therefore, here we'll see whether this would be a positive. So things that are positive would be earth, earth to control water, especially when the water is strong. Therefore, we find that many favorable elements. So we might want wood to produce fire to make money. And so therefore, these are the elements that one may consider to be useful. All right. So here it is a bit of a challenge to find out what are the negative or the idle. If not, then we find what is useful. Okay, so we can see that this person is a direct resource structure. A direct resource structure. That this person is a hurting officer pasar. And of course, we do, okay, but anyway, our topic today is on compatibility. So we will stick to compatibility. And now let's turn our attention to the female. For the female, this lady is Pink Fire Lady. Pink Fire Lady born in Monkey. In the month of the monkey would be autumn. Therefore, Pink Fire is very weak. Pink Fire is very weak. So in the schedule, we'll find that the two useful elements will be the rainwater and the Wu Earth. And the rainwater is both present. Rainwater is both present. And of course, Wu Earth is also present. Nothing protruded, Therefore, this will be very useful. Huh? Very, very useful. All right. And so as we look into the useful God, can you consider something that is something that we can observe? Can you find that the useful God for the pink fire lady is the husband, the run water? And can you find that the useful God for the guy is the pink fire, which is also so compatible or not? Huh? So can we consider them to be compatible? So both these charts, their useful gods include spouses, huh? Spouses. So this would be where, so this would be where we may say that both their lives will be better. Both their lives would improve after they got married. Because why? Because spouses are part of their useful gods, and so forth. But anyway, more of girlfriend for the guy, and also, of course, more of a boyfriend for the female. Therefore, very likely they will be friends. So this is where we will continue the compatibility index. Now, let's take a look. So therefore, we consider the useful God. And we now come to the next part where we find the second question. If there's any combination, if there's a combination with the useful God, are the useful God elements being combined? Is there any combination that we can? So to look into combinations, what are the combinations can we find? So to identify the useful gods, the combinations in the element, what do we mean by combination? Whether when we identify, where will be combined. So we'll find that the pink fire is here, and for the lady there will be the run water here, and the Wu Earth here, and the Jia Wu Earth. And so whether there's any combination of the pillars, or whether there's any, whether the pillar combines or the animals combine. None, so no. Therefore, we don't find that there's an immediate combination. Now, there may not be any immediate combination, but then we may also explore through the luck pillars upon the arrival of any combination when it comes to the combination. Okay, next question. So as we move along, we now come into the next question, question number 3. Is there a clash with negative? So this NG represents negative, negative. Essentially, it means unfavorable elements. If there's any unfavorable elements, and whether those unfavorable elements are clash away. So if they clash away, then we can find that the husband and wife can then support each other. So that's how we want to read, that they can be supporting each other. Now, question number 4, we then explore whether there is no clash, absence of clash in the useful God, right? Absence of clash. If there's an absence of clash, then there'll be where the spouse are helpful to each other. And of course, now we come on into something which is now negative when the useful God is being clashed. When the useful God is being clashed. So if the useful God is being clashed, then this is where we can find that the points are now lower and where the spouses are not willing to help. And 6, of course, if the useful God is being combined away as a negative God. All right, now as we take a look into this particular chart, we do see that this chart has great amount of compatibility, great amount of uh, affinity with one another, and therefore they would get married, and they would have got a long, strong marriage together. And now, if we would like to explore, as we now come into combinations and clashes, can we now look into the luck pillars? And now we can look into the final part, and now look into the luck pillars. Anyone can pinpoint any luck pillars that are harmful, any luck pillars that would clash. Any arrival of the luck pillars that would clash. Any arrival of luck pillar that would tantamount to a pillar that is negative onto the other elements. If you consider how will, let's take a look into this luck pillar. This luck pillar is quiz, water snake. What will the luck pillar, arrival of the water snake luck pillar, contribute or affect to the male? Okay, water represents the rock wealth. Okay, water represents the rock wealth element. And for rainwater, okay, water represents the negative god. Because this would be a strong day master. So a strong day master would find a rock wealth star to be unfavorable. Anyway, Koi water is the cloud that blocks the sun. And therefore, the arrival of a negative god will not find favor. Moreover, where does a snake, what will the snake interact with the chart? The arrival of the snake will have snake clashes with what? What are snake clashes with? So the snake, huh? Oh, sorry. Snake clashes with, uh, snake doesn't clash with Shen, Malika. Snake combines with the Shen and destroy the Shen. The snake the snake combines with the Shen. So the snake combines with the Shen. The snake destroys the Shen. But the snake clashes with the pig, the pig with the pig. Is that all right? And whenever a luck pillar, whenever the luck pillar shares the same element as the day master, it is quite a milestone luck pillar. No, it's not really full yin. It's not really full yin, not the whole pillar. But of course, we do find that it's the same day pillar. This is monkey, and this is tiger. So what is the relationship between the monkey and the tiger? Clash, huh? It's in the clash. Between the monkey, therefore this represents a bit of a clash. All right, as it is. Huh? Therefore, it represents a bit of a clash. Therefore, we can do fine. That would have been an event. That would have. Okay. So in a way, as we look into the relationship, and now let us compare to the facts. The facts to the case is that these both of them got married. Both of them got married in the year 1994. So this couple got married in 1994. In 1994, and I would have to say, after 27 years of marriage, they eventually got divorced in the year 2021. So after 27 years of marriage, it has somehow came to an end. So it ended in 2021. It ended in the luck pillar, in the luck pillar where the ping yin clashes with the day master for the female. And also, we will find that the yin clashes with the monkey as well. And of course, we also find that Kuei water represents the rock wealth to the Ren water male. We've also, of course, find the snake clashes with the. Now, when we look into, okay, so therefore that will be what has come to pass. So what has come to pass? I think some of you may begin to suspect which chart am I referring to, whose chart am I referring to, that comes into. But now let's focus on the year they got married. The year they got married was the year 1994. In 1994, what was the luck pillar then? The luck pillar for 1994 would be here for the female. And the female would be in the luck pillar of the snake. Luck pillar of the snake. The luck pillar for the snake forms the 色羽丑 snake to the rooster. 色羽丑. Because here, because the day was the monkey, therefore the peach blossom is the rooster. And as we find for the male was born on the day of the dog, and dog being the yin wuxi, where the peach blossom will then be the rabbit, will be the rabbit. And for the rabbit, yin wuxi, we can find that for the luck pillar 1994 will be having this pillar, which is the keng yin, which is your tiger. Alright, so for tiger forms the yin wuxi with the dog itself. Therefore, there's the fire trinity. The fire trinity. Moreover, dog combines with the rabbit. Or anyway, that would be just looking into where the both of them got married at the appropriate peach blossom facilitated year, the luck pillar. And of course, they got then divorced 3 to 4 luck pillars later. That comes in. All right. Therefore, as we do read that even though the compatibility was very high, we do see that they do have almost 3 decades of very good blossoming relationships. But somehow, the arrival of the luck pillar that coincide, both of them negative. Okay, now let's take a look into the next case here. As we take a look into this case, now let's take a look into this case. For Delhi, what do you mean by okay? Let's take a look into this case now. Okay, so let's start all from the top once again. From the top, once again, this time we plot both the couples chart. As we plot the chart, naturally, we start with the day master. So who will be what is the day master for the male? This is a Yeatwood. A Yeatwood born in December in the month of the rat is strong. Therefore, this is a very strong day master. A Yeatwood born in the day master. So let me just again. And therefore, it's a strong. What will be the useful god? No? What will be the useful element here for the day master? We just take a look into the chart. So therefore, what will be the useful day master? It's a strong day master. Therefore, what would the Yeatwood would find favor in terms of its output, in terms of its regulating god. So the regulating god here would be the pink fire. So you can see that number one, the pink fire somehow is void. Somehow it's void. So, but of course, our reading will never be accurate, both absent of the hour pillar. So once absent of the hour pillar, we might make the wrong conclusion, as always. Okay, so again, we now look into the lady's chart. Sin metal. Sin metal lady born in the month of the snake. We do see that the sin metal is very weak and it has useful gods void. So the useful god will be rainwater, absent, chia wood, absent, kueh water, absent. Therefore, we do find that the elements are quite absent. Also, when we look into the day master for both of them, one would be a Yeatwood, one would be a Yeatwood, and one of them is a sin metal. So ask ourselves, is there compatibility? Is there compatibility between a sin metal and a Yeatwood? So one is a blade and one is a flower. Usually we would like it. Usually we would like it if one is yin and one is yang. If both are yin or both are yang, so sometimes this may not spell favorable outcomes. But here the sin metal cuts the Yeatwood. The sin metal is the seven killing to the Yeatwood. And therefore, from a compatibility point of view, that is not going to be, these two day masters are not compatible. So they're not so compatible. So therefore, the blade threatens the shoot indicates that no, they are not compatible. Now we come on into the second question. What would be the couple star position? So in the couple star position, the day master will find that the Chi Earth represents the indirect wealth. And then, of course, the sin metal here for the lady, for the sin lady, for the lady, then we'll find that the direct officer would be fire, and therefore there is compatibility. That both will have spouses on the day branch. I think somehow the 10 gods here are not in the correct order. I just need to correct that. Okay, now we do find that at this juncture here, we would now come to the next step as we consider that the void god is pink fire and we find them present onto the other chart. And when we find that gray water being a useful chart, gray water being into the chart. And of course, the jackwood come into the chart. So in this particular context, we do find that the elements which they now void god, so void god represents elements that are supposed to be useful, but yet empty, yet there is void. So this is different from the first case, where for the first case, they have it, they have it. So once you have it, there is affinity. But when you don't have it, then it's a sense of emptiness. So it's a sense that the element is empty, the person is empty, and there is a need. So therefore, it's more to find that there's a fulfillment of need, fulfillment of need that comes in. Right. And in this context here, as we now explore, as we run through to the checklist of the questions, then from the checklist of the questions again, we come on into the same thing. So we ask the first question, do they have a couple star position? Does the man has a direct wealth or spouse on a dear branch? Yes. Does the woman have a spouse branch? Yes. Therefore, couple star position is met with a yes. Are there any combinations with the UG? No. Are there any clashes with the negative elements? So therefore, we have to explore what are the negative elements. So if you're not too sure about that, we can always go to the basics. Now, for a yeet wood this yeet wood is very strong. Therefore, as it's very strong, it may find that rock wealth can be unfavorable. Or we can find that elements which are not useful. So what is not useful what is not useful to yeet wood may be sin metal. So that may be also the case. As it is. All right. Okay. Now, as you continue more towards more of the question, the next part of the question is to look into the negative God. Now, I think we can find, if you read this enough, you can find that they are actually a mirror to it. Whereby, of course, if if the negative God combines with the useful God. So if the negative God combines with the useful God, this may represents some support. And of course, here, if there is no clash, if there's negative God has no clash, then we may consider them to be negative. So these are all the negative points. If the negative God represents or found in the couple star position. Therefore, there can be also very low, or it's being clashed away. It's being clashed. So these are all represents to the part. Now slowly we'll try to build up the case, and therefore here, coming back to the case here, we can then find for their peach blossom. So now as we focus on their peach blossom star, the peach blossom star for the male is the red. If the peach blossom star is the year of the red, then of course, what may form the trinity with the red? No? What may form the trinity with the red? Dragon and monkey, okay? Or dragon and monkey, all right? So if there's a dragon and monkey, the monkey is here. So the monkey is here. Shen, Zhi. Therefore, that might be the luck pillar. The luck pillar that forms it. So maybe it can be the dragon ear. And then for the lady, it is the horse. For the lady, that would be the horse. Yin Wuxi. Dog and tiger. Okay, dog and tiger. Right. Well, the tiger is, well, the dog is here. The dog is here. There's no tiger. Form. Therefore, for the lady, so in a way, indicating that the luck pillars. But then, of course, to be fair, we must also look into. I mean, the luck pillar, this would be quite late. This would be putting her in her 50s. So we may have to look in. I mean, sometimes you have to consider that how old the lady would be. That means by time. So mostly we may look into the younger age to consider it. Therefore, uh, that will be enough. Looking into some of the earlier part, as it is. If not, then we may also consider that other pillar may not be favorable. Like for example, uh, she is a snake. She has two snakes, and here this is a monkey. So the thing about monkey and snake, of course, is there is a combination and a destruction. First you combine, then you destruct. Therefore, if there's any marriage during the period, uh, there can be a combination because the monkey combines with the spouse pillar. But then, of course, it might represent a bit of a destruction. So putting them together. If let's say, for example, if the guy's luck pillar is here and referring to here, therefore this may be a scenario whereby there is an initial combination, but then the combination may eventually result in the destruction. So we may consider that for this, the marriage, any marriage between these two will be quite short term. Will be quite short term. They would not very likely last a very long term. Why will it not last a long term? Because their compatibility is based on void God. Their compatibility is based on void God. And the sequence of the luck pillars do not match. They don't match. As they don't match, it may indicate that the matching is not a favorable match, indicating that. So in a way, of course, as we look into the what has come to the past, this couple got married. This couple got married in the year 2005. They got married in the year 2005. So 2005, so based on the luck pillar for the lady, she got married in the luck pillar of the monkey. And of course, for the guy 205, got married in also the luck pillar of the monkey into one part. And here we can also see that the two of them got divorced in the year 2016. They got divorced in the year 2016. All right. Okay, so we have looked into these two cases, and you later you can let me know. I'm still developing the software and try to automate more and more things. I think I need to do some correction on the chart, so we're just experimenting it. So you guys are guinea pig to be able to start to look into how we can put on these two so-called pairing. So we're comparing two charts at the same time and see how the elements react to one another. All right. So anyway, this will be just one round. I'll see you next week as we look into more and more cases and try to improve on how we can read this chart. Hopefully, it's not too complicated for all of you. All right. So in that case, I think that's all for the sharing for today. Most welcome. Thank you very much. I will see you next week then. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.